to speak a little bit about each of these tribulations, inshallah ta'ala. And we'll start first of all by speaking about fitna itself as a word. From the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jal, it is from His wisdom that He has made this world as a place of test. This world is a place of test and nothing else. And in this world, the people are tested so that they can be divided into two groups. Into the group of the mu'min, the believer, and the kafir, the disbeliever. Or into the muwahhid, the one who singles out Allah Azza wa Jal in worship, and the mushrik, the one who associates others with Him in worship. Between the salih, the one who is righteous, who obeys Allah and fears Allah, and between the fasiq, the sinful one. Or between the ta'i', the obedient, and the asin, the disobedient. And between the sunni, the salafi, the one who adheres and sticks to the guidance, makes tamassuk to the sunnah, and the bid'i, the one who goes in the path of innovation. So all of these, what comes in front of an individual in his life, all of it is a test to divide him into one of these two categories: Muslim, kafir, mu'min, kafir, mushrik, muwahhid, sunni, bid'i, salih, fasiq. All the time, this is you're being distinguished between one or the other. Regarding this, Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says regarding the ayah in Surah Al-Ankabut at the beginning, حَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do people think that they will be left saying we believe, that they can just say we believe, and that they will not be tested, they will not be put to trial? So Ibn Kathir says that this is like a rhetorical question. It's a question by which a rejection is meant, by which a rejection is intended. The question is put so as to reject what is in the question, that there is no way that man will be left alone without being put to trial and without being tested. And so he says, وَمَعْنَاهُ أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ subhanahu wa ta'ala لَا بُدَّ أَن يَبْتَلِيَ عِبَادَهُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. That the meaning of it is that it is necessary, there's no escape from that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test His believing servants in accordance with the level of faith that they have. As we see in the hadith, أشد الناس بلاء الأنبياء ثم الصالحون ثم الأمثل فالأمثل. That the most severely tested of the people are the prophets, then the righteous, then those like them, then those like them. A man is put to trial in accordance with his religion, meaning the extent of his deen, the extent of his iman. The greater that iman, the more he will be put to trial. So if there is substance and essence in his religion, then he will be increased in trials. And so he mentioned the hadith, and then he continues to say, and likewise in this ayah, حسبتم, like the previous ayah, is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة ولما يعلم الله الذين جاهدوا منكم ويعلم الصابرين. Do you think that you will enter paradise without Allah having known those amongst you who strive and those amongst you who are patient? And likewise another similar ayah in the Quran, in Al-Baqarah, he cites the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة ولما يأتكم مثل الذين خلوا من قبلكم مستهم البأساء والضراء وزلزلوا حتى يقول الرسول والذين آمنوا معه متى نصر الله ألا إن نصر الله قريب. So he says, do you believe, do you think that you will enter paradise without there coming to you the likes of that which came to those who came before you? Hardship, evil, hardship, calamities befell them, and they were shaken to such a degree that the messenger and those who were with him, who believed with him, they said, when is the help of Allah? Indeed, the help of Allah is near. And for that reason, Ibn Kathir says, this is why in the first ayah that we mentioned, that does man think he will be left saying I believe and he will not be tested? At the end of that verse he said, وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. That indeed we did test those who came before them, and Allah knew certainly those who believed, who were truthful, and those who were the liars. And Imam al-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala, he said upon the same ayah that from the wisdom, from his wisdom, from Allah's wisdom, is that no one should be left saying I believe, I am a believer, and no one should be left claiming iman for himself, that he should remain in this state without being put to trial, without being put to tribulations, and so that nothing will come to them that will cause obstacles or cause confusion about his faith. That this is not the case. This will never be the case. No person will ever be left alone saying I'm a believer without these things coming to him, causing disturbances in his faith. Because if this was the case, if we were all left saying I am a believer, I am a Muslim, I am a Muwahhid, I am a Sunni, I am a Salafi, then no one would be distinguished between, no one would know who is the truthful and who is the liar, and the one who is upon truth and one who is upon falsehood. So it is from the Sunnah of Allah Azza wa Jal, it is from the Sunnah, from His ways in His creation, in the previous nations and all other nations, that He will put them to trial with ease, with hardship, with difficulty, with calamities, with richness, with wealth, with poverty, and with enemies harming them in some instances, and so on and so forth. So all of these are fitan. They must necessarily come to every individual. And that's why Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he also mentioned regarding the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْدَكُمْ لِبَعْدٍ فِتْنَةً أَتَصْبِرُونَ وَكَانَ رَبُّكَ بَصِيرًا. He said, Allah says, we have made some of you as a tribulation for others to see if you will be patient. And your Lord is ever watchful. So Ibn al-Qayyim has some really beautiful words upon this ayah. He says, this statement, this verse, is general for all of the creation. No one escapes this ayah. Everyone comes under this ayah. Because Allah Azza wa Jal, He puts some people to trial by way of others. So for example, the messengers are put to trial by way of those to whom they are sent, so that they call them to the truth and show patience upon their harm and suffer all sorts of burdens in conveying the message to them. And those people to whom the messengers were sent, they have been put to trial by way of the messengers. So one is put to trial with the other, and vice versa, that is put to trial with the other. So to see, will they obey the messengers? Will they aid the messengers? Will they believe in the messengers, or will they disbelieve them and fight against them? Likewise, He puts the ulama, the scholars, to trial by way of the juhal, the ignoramuses. Will they teach them? Will they advise them? Will they have patience in teaching them and advising them and directing them? And likewise, He put the ignorant people to trial by way of the ulama. Will they obey the scholars? Will they guide themselves by way of the scholars? Likewise, He put the kings and the leaders to trial by way of the subjects, and the subjects by way of their kings and their leaders. He puts the rich to trial by way of the poor and needy, and the poor and needy by way of the rich. And He puts the weak to trial by way of the strong, and the strong to trial by way of the weak. And He makes the leaders, the authority figures, put to trial by way of their followers, and the followers put to trial by way of their authority figures and their leaders. And likewise, the slave owner by way of the slave, and the slave by way of the slave, the master, and a man put to trial by way of his wife, and his wife put to trial by way of her husband, and women by men, and men by women, believers by the disbelievers, disbelievers by the believers, those who command the good and prohibit the evil, They are put to trial by those whom they are commanding and prohibiting, and vice versa. Those who are prohibited and commanded, they are put to trial by those who are commanding them and prohibiting them. So every single person, no one escapes from this. Everyone is put into trial in at least one of these different ways. So once we understand this fitnah, how it encompasses everybody, we should understand the meaning of the word fitnah in the Arabic language. And it is, as is mentioned by Ibn Faris, al-fa wa-ta wa-nun aslun sahih yadullu ala ibtila'in wa ikhtibarin. That the fa, ta and nun is a sound, a root, and it indicates ibtila wa ikhtibar, which is putting to trial and testing. And from this word is al-fitnah, and it is said as an expression, وَفَتَنْتُ الذَّهَبَ بِالنَّارِ إِذَا امْتَحَنْتُهُ, that I put the gold to trial, meaning I separated the gold by way of the fire. I removed the dirt and the ore from the gold by way of the fire. So this is the meaning of the word fitnah. And shaitan was shaitan al-fattan. Al-fattan or shaitan. And one of the words given to refer to shaitan is al-fattan, because he separates and distinguishes those who are his allies from those who are the allies of Ar-Rahman. And so likewise, the word fitnah has been used with many different connotations in the Quran. Very briefly, I'll mention them without going into all of the ayat in the Quran. The word shirk is referred to as fitnah in the Quran. Likewise, al-ibtila wal-ikhtibar, which is the linguistic meaning of the word, it is used in that sense as well. Likewise, al-adhab, punishment, is referred to as al-fitnah. Al-ihraqu bin-nar, being punished by the fire, burned by the fire, is a fitnah. Al-qatl is fitnah. As-sad, which means to block people from the path of Allah, this is fitnah. Al-dalala, misguidance, is fitnah. And al-junun, madness, is fitnah. Al-ithm, sinfulness, is fitnah. This word has been used in all these different ways in the Quran. So what are the ways that a person is put to trial? We mentioned there are 4 altogether that we can discuss. The first of them is shirk. The second of them is wives and children. The third of them is wealth. And the fourth of them is women. And inshallah ta'ala, if we have enough time, we'll try to go through all of them one by one.